G'day everybody, Pete coming to you from PV Media Productions. I will have a little bit of Veronica having some say in this in a few minutes, but for now I wanted to catch up on what's transpired since episode 1. In episode 1 it was about SEER, the group that were doing a scan on my brain, an EEG, over a week-long period. Well, we hadn't heard anything for quite some time. They submitted a report to the neurologist, and the neurologist was supposed to get back to me and all this sort of thing. Well, the good news is I've heard from the neurologist and I do have an appointment with him, and that will be on the 7th of July. So the 7th of the 7th. I'll go in and we'll find out what the results of that EEG were, a prolonged period. We have to remember that what they're looking at is this chronic cerebral microangiopathy that I have. Now I've managed to get that out, so my cognitive issues that we're watching, the cognitive decline, this is what we're concerned about. I've titled this episode Pattern Making. I'm not a pattern maker and I'm not pattern making, okay? But what I am doing, and I'm not talking about the pattern makers that make dresses, I'm talking about the pattern makers that make machinery and engine parts and the like, which is what my cousin Gary does. So I've got a little bit of footage of this part that we are making. It is part of the chassis, the subframe for a Porsche. This is a new design that has been put forward by an engineer, and they've decided that they want these cast in aluminium. So they've gone to Gary and they've said, this is what it looks like. This is what we would like you to do. So Gary has 3D drawings of this, which he's had some input into. I'm not 100% sure if he did the drawings, but I think that he's had input into the drawings. Nonetheless, he's using these 3D drawings and he color codes them. So I'll show you a little bit of the computer activity and that sort of thing in the next video. But this week, what I'm going to do is I've been helping by sanding some of it, because we're making these parts and they need to be smooth for when they are cast, when they're packed with sand. So a cavity has to be created in the sand which looks like the machine part. And so it's all about getting that sand packed it up hard so that they can pour into the sand to reproduce the part that they want. So what they do first is they go to a person like Gary and they say, can you make a pattern for the part? This is what we want it to look like. This is the function of the part. Can you do this? So Gary has to make the part, and then he has to make core boxes as well, so that, or something similar to a core box or a pattern, a negative of that, so that you've got something holding it in place when they pack the sand. Otherwise it's going to distort it or break it. And so it's very involved. It's a very big job. And they cast the first one, which I've got photos of, and in a morning, in one morning, it was done and dusted. Just cutting one side of one pattern can take up to 18 hours. And that's just the machining of it. That's not the sanding of it and the spraying of it and getting it to that point where it's smooth as glass. So it needs to be that way so that it can be, because any abnormality with it, if any angle is incorrect or there's any burr on it or anything like that, when they take that pattern out of the sand to leave the cavity, they will destroy a portion of that mold. And so it has to be absolutely perfect. And that's where I come in to give a hand, because he's been doing this all himself, but there is so much of it that needs to be done. There are something like 9 parts to this front of the subframe. This is only one subframe in 9 parts, but to do each one of these, you're looking at roughly a week's work, you know. So it's a lot, and then it gets cast in, and it can be cast in half a day, less than half a day, and they can cast repeated numbers of these things using that same template over and over and over again to pack it into the sand. So they're using the parts that Gary makes for it. And so that's what this is all about. So I'm going to show you what happens. And I'm going to narrate a little bit as well while we're going along so that you'll have a better understanding of it. Okay, here I am sanding this part. It's part of the subframe. It's the first part that we're doing. It's the very, very front, like the nose, if you like. And it needs to be very smooth. So you'll see all this pink and the white and the grey. It's primer, putty, bog. And I'm sanding it and using my fingertips to check to see that it is absolutely perfectly smooth, like glass. Right, so this is it. This is the part of the chassis, part of the subframe. Yep. And this is Gary, and he's going to tell us what this is all about.
Yeah.
Now, you were showing me how it all fits together a moment ago.
That's a drop joint, so that the foundry can make it, they've got to make that, but they can't just take it and ram it up the sand as it is. So that's there to block out the holes. So when they ram it up, they put a box around there, ram that up the sand's not going to fall through those holes. Then when that's all, the sand's all hardened and ready, they'll take this out with the sand and they'll have that side there, and then they'll be able to ram that side up.
Yeah.
Yeah, without using that box.
Yeah.
So that's how that works. Yeah. And that one there has one also, which will look like that.
I've paused this over here to show you this core box or plug that George is going to put fiberglass over, because that's very, very heavy. So we need to have a much lighter one. Now I'll come to that a little bit later.
This is the dummy joint for that one. So the foundry can ram that up without it distorting and moving in it.
Yeah, no, that's awesome, that. So
because they're all loose patterns, you know, we didn't want to put a core box in there.
Yeah.
You can do it by doing a core, which means the pattern would look like that. And then you'd make a separate box to give them that core. But they prefer to do it like this.
But instead you make the plug.
Yeah.
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 Okay.
And then they turn that over, ram that side up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Excellent.
That's it all rough before you get hold of it.
Before I get hold of it and making. Yeah. Okay. That's my job. No, that's excellent. Thanks very much for that, Gary. Okay. I'm bogging this at the moment, and as you can see, all this pink stuff is the bog. Put my microphone down there for a moment. Against that. Okay, just finished this side. For the most part, I've turned it over and I'm working on the other side at the moment, so I'll have to come back to that side a bit later on as well. Just getting all the rough bits there, you know, like that over there. Yep. Okay. This is now completed, or not quite completed, but almost completed with the sanding. So I've sanded it, I've puttied it, bogged it, puttied it, sprayed it. It's after sanding it, and now what I'm doing is I'm looking for imperfections, which are a lot easier to see once I've put an undercoat on it. This is the next job now. This is the opposite side of the vehicle or subframe of the one that I've just been sanding. So this is being glued and screwed and bolted to this plug, if you like. And that plug is really, really heavy, and it's very heavy so that the CNC machine will be accurate when it completes this, but it's too heavy to send to the foundry. So Georgia will actually make a fiberglass copy of that, so that Gary will then reinforce, and I'll show you that as we go. But now this is the second side. It's been overnight, it's glued together, and it's ready to go with the machining. So Gary's about to start that now. Okay, we've just started, we're 20% into this now, and this is the program running and the CNC machine doing its job, cutting the job. And of course the biggest concerns here are power outages or computer glitches. Okay, this is now Georgia creating a mold from the dummy joint. So she's actually putting fiberglass on. That black stuff there is actually the release that she's put on there so that they're able to pull this apart. And she's just measuring up the fiberglass sheets, and once she's got sufficient of those, she will then get out the resin and she will create the part that she needs. Once the mold is made, Georgia will create the dummy joint in the mold, and Gary is now here separating that part, the dummy joint, from the mold.
So, dummy joint for the body 2 that Pete's working on now.
Yeah, dummy joint for the one I'm working on. Okay. Yeah, no, that's very good.
Trim that up and put a base in it. The ribs in it just
To give it some strength?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. Okay. Well, I'll do a little bit more footage of that a little bit later on.
Yeah.
Ribs for some strength and a base as well.
Yeah.
Is it? Oh, okay. Yep. Yeah. Much lighter than the plug. Yeah, MDF's very heavy. So fiberglass plug. Yeah. Excellent. Now, this is the fiberglassing. The ribs in that are put underneath to give it some support, to brace it. Otherwise it'll be too flexible. So we don't want to give it too much weight, but it needs to be firm and solid. Veronica, do you want to tell them a little bit about our visit to Redcliffe and to the hospital, and then we went along to the beach? Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I'll put a little bit of that footage up here.
I had to go back to the hospital to the physio just to check my hand, make sure everything is going well, and it is. I decided let's go down to the beach. You know, because we haven't been down to the beach for about 2 years now. So we went over there, and it was a lovely day, morning, but it was lovely because it wasn't windy and it wasn't cold, it was just right.
Yeah, it's lovely warm day.
We had a beautiful sun shining on us for a change after all this rain that we've had, you know, so it was lovely.
So let's wrap it up now.
Okay.
And yeah, so we'll say
Bye.
bye. Don't forget that if you like what you see, share it with everybody, put it across social media everywhere. So like it, subscribe, and ring the bell.
Bye.
Bye everybody.
See you later.
We'll see you later. Take care. God bless.